Okay, that's the who, what, where, but that doesn't tell us why it was secret
Mm-hmm.
and why you let us believe for months on end that there was this UFO invasion, assuming there was no UFO invasion. So it's like, how am I supposed to believe your chosen narrative on what these drones are when you don't explain why?
Yeah. It's just like this is like classic narcissistic behavior, which, as an entity, is what a government or bureaucracy. That's how you would be treated by that. It's like a soulless way of they. Your government does not love you. It's incapable.
It might hate you.
They do not. It by design cannot have your best interests in it. They're not operating on your best interests.
In this episode, we take the black pill. We look at the larger picture of the newly released JFK documents and ask the question, will we ever get the truth? No, we will not.
My whole life has been leading up to this.
I want you to go wild because I'm going to go wild, and I'm just going to say it. I've been black pilled a little bit on this. Maybe in these 63,000 pages, there might be more coming out. I want to make the case to you that we're never going to get the answer. Ever, ever, ever. I'll just say part one. I don't need any documents for this. Part one, if you were powerful enough in the early 1960s to kill a president of the United States and get away with it for this long, there's no way there's a paper trail.
Yep.
Things just didn't work that way. There's, when you look at stuff like MK Ultra, it's been admitted that they just destroyed thousands of pages of documents like that. So, like, of course, the first thing that happens when an embassy is overrun is we start burning documents. There's no way, even assuming if stuff was written down, which I'm sure a lot of it wasn't, there's no way there's a paper trail leading back to this. And if there is, we have millions of documents so far, millions of pages, thousands and tens of thousands of documents. All it would take for them to hide the truth forever is to remove a select couple pages. One document. One thing I've learned from the release of this, and this is the same every time we come across a CIA document, every time we come across something, there seems to be no organization. They find 2,400 documents. When they release them, it's just like this giant, there's a word for this in law, document dumps. Okay, that's could have guessed that word. There's a word called document dumps where when you're doing discovery in a lawsuit, you just dump thousands and thousands of pages on the person without order, without context. It's considered,
It's a tactic.
it's a hostile tactic. It's meant to halt people from finding things, and it's so obvious that that's what they're doing when they release these documents.
And we're not even dealing with now they're searchable with a computer. So you have technology, but before then it was literally just probably boxes of shit in a basement somewhere, and then
Right, and they've had 60 years to organize this stuff. There's been so
Right.
many,
or not organize it.
or not organize it.
Yeah.
There was the secondary investigation after the Warren Commission in the 70s. There was the 1992 law. There was Trump's 2017 order. They've had years and years and years to put this in some kind of order, and they haven't done it. So number one, I just don't think the documents would exist that would prove anything. Number two, if they did, they were either burnt or removed selectively from this hostile document dump. Number three, okay, kind of like the drones thing, I think there's already evidence that we're being lied to. Okay, so somebody said,
I would just like to say, since we're
Yes.
talking about lying, that lies do not protect good. Lies only protect evil.
yes. Okay, our girl, Anna Paulina Luna, stated in February 2025, quote, based on what I've been seeing so far, the initial hearing that was actually held here in Congress was actually fairly faulty in the single bullet theory. I believe there were two shooters. And then when you listen to Trump, the way he talks about this is he says it's time for a cleansing, it's time for everything to come out. Then they just dump this stuff with no clear answers. No, so
It's like the way that it gets talked about is like all these literal pages, these physical papers were just sitting in a closet. People knew they were there, like the National Record, the NARA, they knew where all this shit was, but nobody was looking at it from 1963 until now.
Well, here,
like
here's my question:
60 plus years.
Here's my black pill moment. Based on these three things. One,
George H.W. Bush didn't read any of this shit.
Yeah, nobody was curious. Well, here's the problem. The narrative is that a lot of people in high places, including presidents, and I believe Obama even spoke on this, claim to have seen these things. They just say they can't release it. Mm-hmm. So they say, well, there's stuff there, but there's national security concerns. So the excuse they're going to use... And I kind of became partially black-pilled around the time this executive order was signed this year. One, because there's a lot of actually good reasons why, even if it was a single bullet, single shooter, whatever, single shooter, there's a lot of kind of good reasons why you wouldn't necessarily release these things. Because if you're doing an investigation into the motives for killing a president, by its very nature, you're going to have to discuss all the possible people, all the possible governments.
You can't show your cards.
Right. And so let's just say, well, it might have been USSR. Well, say you do a thorough investigation, which it looks like they did, into Oswald's association with the KGB. To release that during the Cold War could risk nuclear war. You could have a political uprising in America for retaliation. Okay, say Israel. Say you investigate Israel, but you don't find any evidence. Well, then you're just pissing off a supposed ally. So I could see why, if you look into all these different people and all these different scenarios, even if it was a single shooter, which I do not believe it was, why you might have good reason not to release it. But here's where I think they tip their hand, if you will. And that is my third point about all these people in high places saying it's a time for healing. I've seen stuff that says 2 shooters. Here's what we're never going to get. Nobody in charge of these documents that have had them and read them is going to go on TV or release a book and say, here's why we kept these secret. Mm-hmm. Here's the page that makes me think there's a second shooter. Here's my theory of the case. Here's why that couldn't be known. They just hostilely dump all this information on you after making all these tantalizing statements, and then they just leave you to your own conclusions. Like, I feel like at this point, Luna, I feel like since she felt comfortable going on TV and saying, based on what I've seen, there's a second shooter, she now owes it to us to point out in this freaking 80,000, 60,000 pages what she's talking about. Mm-hmm. If it's the stuff that we covered in part 1, fine. If it's something else, or if it's something that hasn't been released, well, then we need to know that. And if Trump says it's a time for healing, he needs to say what we're healing from. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
You can't just say, it's time, all the truth's going to come out. And then you just here's 900 boxes of unorganized files that, okay, you're healed now. You got to say, here's what happened based on our best, or even if you just say your theory. But they're never going to do that.
It's like if you broke up with your girlfriend, your significant other, and you're like, what happened? Just be honest with me. Just tell me what happened so I can heal and move on. And they sent you an 80,000 page email.
Yes. That had stuff that wasn't,
and the truth
had nothing to do with it.
And maybe the truth was in there too. But you just have to read 80,000 pages to get the truth.
And the truth is some subjective. It's one text message that she sent to a friend that said, I don't think this will work out because of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
so even if you find the document, that's not an explanation from her.
Right.
So this release isn't really a release of anything super substantive, in my opinion, without an explanation.
How much time do you think would have to pass before it would be safe to have 100% full disclosure of the truth?
It depends on what happened. It depends on what the truth is.
I just want to put that question out
yes.
into people's minds. Because that gives you a frame of reference for what it could be implied in these documents or the ones that we don't, you know.
Well, one of these, so we did Garrett Underhill and we did Sergei Zornono. Sergei Zornono didn't necessarily say there was U.S. government involvement. He just said he warned them before it happened and they failed. Mm-hmm. So what if the big thing we have to heal from is that
that's Pearl Harbor, that's 9/11.
Yes.
That's almost every major tragedy in this context.
It really was one crazy dude with a gun, but we can't protect our own leadership. Maybe that's the big story, but that's not what people are saying.
That to me is in a way at least as scary as a hostile threat.
If you just, like you said with the girlfriend analogy, if you just dump tens and tens of thousands of pages on us and you don't, after teasing us for months, after teasing us for years, saying these are bombshells, we're going to have to heal, it's time to get it all out in the open, I think there's 2 shooters, you gotta show us you gotta explain to us what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Otherwise you're just feeding speculation, which I believe is what makes this clearly a disinformation campaign. I believe clearly the CIA benefits from being one name out of 100 names of possible people involved. These documents could be everything. This could be everything. It's the who, what, where, when. It's not the why. Mm-hmm. We're never going to get the why, and it's almost like we're being teased.
The only way you could even probably get close to a why is process of elimination.
Which is the same boat you've been stuck in.
Right. The way in which this is being done leaves that as the only option to get the truth. And then still, because of that, there will be no certainty.
And I'll give a more recent example. The New Jersey drones.
Yeah.
But everybody was saying, from mayors, policemen, congressmen, military bases were saying they were being breached. Everyone was saying, this is not us. We don't know what this is. There were skiff briefings.
Yeah.
So there was all this top secret stuff about these drones. And then Trump says on the campaign trail, day 1, I'll release the info on the drones. And then he has the press secretary go out there and says one sentence. She says, we've looked into the drones. They're all FDA compliant. They're doing research studies. Thank you. We've now told you the truth about the drones. Okay, that's the who, what, where. But that doesn't tell us why it was secret and why you let us believe for months on end that there was this UFO invasion, assuming there was no UFO invasion. So it's like, how am I supposed to believe your chosen narrative on what these drones are when you don't explain why?
Yeah. It's just this is like classic narcissistic behavior, which as an entity is what a government or bureaucracy, that's how you would be treated by that. It's like a soulless way of your government does not love you. It's incapable.
It might hate you.
They do not. It by design cannot have your best interests in it. They're not operating on your best interests. The reason you would do any of that is it triggers a stress response. You go looking for answers. It's to keep people afraid, not knowing, and then it's a control measure. It's a way to manipulate. It's just like classic narcissistic behavior. It's like if you don't, and then they'll come back and say, "Well, hey, here we go." Then they'll love bomb you with some documents, some 60,000 documents. We love you guys. It's time to heal. And you're like, "Oh, great, thank you." And then then it's 78. Then it's 1992. I think it's interesting that George H.W. Bush was passed that law to release the documents, but he is implicated in being in Dallas,
I know,
in Dealey Plaza at the time of the assassination because he was working for the CIA.
I think your dating analogy is perfect. I think that's perfect. You're looking for an answer for somebody. They say, oh, absolutely. They dump 10 years of text messages on you and say, make of it what you will. I've done my part.
And then it's for how you choose to perceive that. Like, I could go look for, like you were saying, like, oh, there is valid reasons for hiding it in terms of national security.
And then say that.
Right. Right.
Just say it. Say, like, we didn't. And they owe an explanation for every part. They should be like, you know why we redacted Israel? Because they had nothing to do with it, but we had to look into it, and it's embarrassing to investigate a friend for murdering your president. Just say it. Nobody's feelings would be hurt. No international events would take place. If that's your take and that's why you did it, then just tell us, and then we'll know. If this whole thing is supposed to be about like peace and reconciliation, they're doing the worst possible job. Who do you think did it?
I think it has to be the intelligence apparatus.
Yeah.
Most certainly. Yeah.
I would argue, even if the CIA wasn't involved in this, that it still somehow behooves them for people to think they were, because it makes them seem all powerful.
That's a very CIA thing to do.
Like, why wouldn't you want random people to think you killed Kennedy?
Right.
Because it makes you seem extremely powerful. If you can kill the president of the United States, you can do anything. Two, it makes people that criticize the CIA look crazy, because that's about the worst thing they can do. So it would behoove them, whether or not they were involved, to have a certain segment of the population believe that they are that evil and powerful.
Classic psychological operation.
Class.
What if the only real weapon the CIA has is just an understanding of the human mind? Like a comprehensive understanding.
Oh, I think they have that in spades, dude. They know how to make you leave your body, probably.
Like the biochemical processes, etc., the psychological conditions that come from those processes, how to trigger that lizard part of the basal stem of your brain. And that's the only weapon you need.
Can I point out another discrepancy to blackpill everybody? 1 month ago, FBI says it found 2,400 new JFK files. That's not pages, that's files.
Oh, fuck. Okay. So
Keep that number in mind.
That could be 240,000 pages.
Yep. It could be 1 million. Well, probably not, but
Yeah.
1 month ago,
Could
found,
be a bajillion.
Could be a bajillion. Now, this is after Trump signed the executive order. Keep that number in mind,
okay.
2,400. You want to know how many files were released this week? 2,182 files, totaling 63,000 pages. Do the math here. Trump signs an order in January to release everything. The FBI discovers 2,400, and then we release less than 2,200. So not only did they release less files than the FBI says they discovered, those are supposed to be the new stuff that Trump didn't even know he's releasing. So how...
There could be a warehouse full of shit that they're just not even acknowledging exists.
How is the number of files released less than the new... I just think there is stuff that is so deep that's going on with our government, whether it be drones, whether it be assassinations. I think that if a president or somebody in power, any politician, really went down that rabbit hole, they wouldn't have time for anything else. You couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You would just be fighting. You'd just be in this endless battle with these people.
The only way you could do it is if you like physically found the documents, scan them onto a server, like if you physically like you raided the FBI.
Yeah,
like
the Marines in. Yeah.
Right. There's obviously that would be perceived as a coup, but like how
I wouldn't see it as a coup.
So like, and then it gets in. Then you're gonna. Well, right. Me neither. But
yeah, I know.
I believe humans deserve the truth. I believe that like that's a human right. We have a right to decide what to do that is best for us, and it's so much. It's like the implications of all this is like kind of overwhelming to even, because then it's.
But where are we? We're at square one, dude.
Yeah.
All that's happened this week, all that's happened this year is we're back to square one.
Well, okay, here's something. We talked about remote viewing before. People have gone and looked at Dealey Plaza on the day of the assassination.
Ooh, okay.
And I couldn't remember any of the names. Okay, Dick Algire, Algire. I don't know. Dick Algire. I'll call him Algire. Dick. I'll call him Dick. Big Dick and the Farsight Institute, run by Dr. Courtney Brown, has conducted multiple remote viewing sessions of JFK's assassinations. Viewers claimed, the remote viewers, there were multiple shooters. Oswald was not the lone gunman and may have been a patsy. The plot involved high-level U.S. intelligence or military figures. Some even reported sensing a deep fear and betrayal around Kennedy before the shots.
Oh.
Themes often reported: shooter on the grassy knoll, a sophisticated cover-up or coordination from intelligence agencies, a decoy or distraction strategy used to frame Oswald. And honestly, it is not evidence of this, but it's very fucking interesting. If you don't know, remote viewing, you're not told that you're going to look.
If you're doing it correctly,
It's a blind experiment.
yeah, you don't say, look at Dealey Plaza, November 22nd, 1963.
So what they'll do is, like, sometimes double blind. I'm the viewer, I get an envelope that says A7 1964 BQR. And that is written next to, in a separate envelope in a different building, the coordinates of Dealey Plaza. So your mind just sees these random letters and numbers, and you're supposed to go to your remote viewing place and just observe what is happening. It'll be the coordinates of Dealey Plaza. It'll be the date and time. It'll be from a top-down view so it is a blind. So these viewers go in and they view that number that's associated with the information that they do not view. And then they report back, they make drawings, they give feelings, details that come up, figures.
You know what? I think he was asking for it.
The meme I keep seeing is just a picture of, like, a redacted document, and it just says, yeah, his head just did that, all weird like.
That's the secret.
He just
See, this is why
He just
our
exploded.
generation, we're so desensitized to all this shit.
This is a needle in a stack of needles. We're looking for one specific needle in a fucking 10-foot tall pile of needles.